Hello and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today on Q&A with Pharmacist Ben Fuchs and myself, Becca Dukes. We are so excited to have you on with us. If you are here, welcome. You're taking time out of your busy schedules. Hi, Ann, I saw that. And investing time in yourself and in just gaining more knowledge in what you can do to help yourself, help your family on a more natural way to creating the journey that you want in your life. And with Q&A with Pharmacist Ben and Becca, we have the amazing, I can't say amazing enough, Pharmacist Ben Fuchs. And Ben, you have been working in skin for how long?
Since 1981.
1981.
I'm 21 years old, so that's 41 years. Can you
I
believe
was
it?
going to say you were what, 2?
62.
No,
62.
at that time in 81, because I was only 10 and you're not much older than I. But today, I think it's so important, especially with the temperatures rising on skincare. And I can't think of a better person to ask about skincare. So how about taking care of our skin in the heat, in the sun, in the summer? Did you freeze?
You asked me a question?
I did.
Okay.
So,
All right.
okay, so for just, if nobody knows, Pharmacist Ben is absolutely incredible. He started out going to school to be a pharmacist, just like regular pharmacists. And he found that when people were taking certain nutrients, they were able to really help themselves better than some of the pharmaceuticals that were being offered. And because of that and his recommendations, they said, we don't think pharmacy is right for you. But I thought that was very cool because he's taken all of his knowledge, and he is a registered pharmacist, but he's taken all of that knowledge and he's put it together, and he just explains everything so clearly that anybody can understand it. Unless you want like super technical, which he can be, absolutely, don't get me wrong. Pharmacist Ben is amazing at presenting information that is easy to understand in segments and bites that are chewable. So today, let's go ahead and talk about the skin, because you've been in skincare for a long time. And it's not just about what you put on the skin, it's about what's coming from the inside out as well.
So it's mostly what comes in from the inside out.
Mostly. And you're an expert with both. So
skincare, go ahead. Topical skincare is like icing on a cake, right? If you have a beautiful cake and you've got great ingredients and then you put icing on top of it, that just enhances the cake. It makes it more beautiful. But if you have a crappy cake and you put icing on top of it, you still have a crappy cake with icing on top of it. And that's kind of how we take care of our skin. We have lousy skin, we put stuff on top of it, and we expect to have better skin. It's kind of like putting icing on a crappy cake. It doesn't work that way. And part of it is perceptual. We look at the skin and it looks like it's on the outside of the body, so we just rub stuff on. Part of it is also generational hypnosis, where we're just taught by our parents, who were taught by their parents, who were taught by their parents, that if you have a skin problem, you rub stuff on the surface of the skin and you get rid of it. And part of it is marketing and advertising. We're encouraged to believe that because skincare products are notoriously inexpensive to make. One of the reasons why there's so many skincare companies out there and so many people who don't know anything about the skin making skincare products, companies making skincare products, is because you're basically selling people water. You're selling people high-priced water with a little bit of oil and a little bit of silicone. This is most skincare products. So the bottom line is the net effect of all of this is nobody's happy with how they're taking care of their skin. And I saw this as a pharmacist. Now, just quick digression. When I was in pharmacy school, I was always kind of troubled by, as you probably heard the story, I was always troubled by the idea of using drugs, toxins to heal the body. It just never quite made sense to me. We also studied nutrition in pharmacy school, and that made a lot more sense to me, especially considering the fact that most chronic deficiency diseases have at their root some kind of nutritional issue, either digestive in terms of absorption or intake, intake leading to deficiency or deficient intake. So when I graduated pharmacy school, I had this kind of background in toxicity or toxicology, which is what drugs, the study of drugs really is. They call it pharmacology. It's really a type of toxicology. And I had a background in nutrition. I was also an athlete. So as an athlete, I was very hip to nutrition because in the world of athletics, you're always looking for an edge. And we were always reading the bodybuilding magazines, the weightlifting magazines to see what was the latest nutritional supplements that athletes or bodybuilders or weightlifters were using. So I was kind of really hip to nutrition. I understood the toxic nature of pharmacology. I also had a very interesting background in pharmacy school. I had a job in pharmacy school. My job was I worked for the Blistex Corporation. The Blistex Corporation, the guy who invented Blistex actually was a professor at the School of Pharmacy in Colorado. I just had this incredible opportunity to work for him. And for 4 years, while all my colleagues, my fellow pharmacy students were getting their internship hours in drugstores, I was getting my internship hours in the Blistex lab, learning how to make Blistex and foil ointment and Kankay and various products that Dr. Jones would invent and formulate. My job was to help him formulate his products. Long story, and I also had to go to the library, and one of my jobs was to go do research on skincare. And back in the 1980s, there wasn't a lot of information about skincare. Skincare didn't really get going from a technical or scientific standpoint. Skincare product chemistry didn't get going until the turn of the 21st century. So I had a background in nutrition, I had a background in pharmacy, I had a background in skincare, went out to the world of pharmacy, and immediately because I never worked in pharmacies, my first thing I did was I went to the skincare section at Kmart where I was working, and I was kind of horrified by what I was seeing in the skincare world. The skincare products, I was an ingredient guy, so I would find myself reading ingredient decks. And by the way, everybody should be an ingredient deck reader on their food and on their skincare products and on their supplements and on anything they interact with, as an aside. And I would find myself reading these ingredient decks, and I would invariably be horrified by what I was seeing. Number one, there was nothing in the skincare products, most skincare products, that could do anything for the skin to create changes in the skin. I knew this from working as an ingredient guy and a formulator. And then there were actually literally toxic ingredients in skincare products that people were rubbing on their bodies. Ingredients that, excuse me, that when I worked in the pharmacy or when I worked for Blistex, I'd wear gloves and I'd wear a mask because I didn't want to touch these things, and people were putting them all, they were rubbing them all over their bodies. So I was immediately horrified. And then on top of all of that, there was this sense of dissatisfaction that consumers and patients had about skincare. They would come up to the pharmacy and they would say things like, nothing's helping my dry skin, nothing's helping my eczema, my skin's drier after I put my moisturizer on than before I put my moisturizer on. Can you help me with my skincare? And I just got this sense that people were unhappy with skincare. I knew why they were unhappy with skincare. And on top of all of that, there was a certain toxicity that people were interacting with skincare products. So this kept happening over and over and over again in my pharmacy until one day, somebody came up to the pharmacy and he had a condition called alligator skin. And it was late. It was one night I was in the pharmacy. It was late. It was closing time. And pharmacists, just as an aside to people who get medication, don't go to your pharmacy 10 minutes to 9 o'clock. The pharmacist does not want to see you right before closing. So I was closing up. I was doing all my work to close up, my paperwork, etc. And this guy walks in, and the first thing I saw was his hands. And he had blisters and fissures and cuts, and there was this white stuff all over it. And it was just painful to look at his hands, let alone I can only imagine what it was like for him to deal with this condition. And he said to me, Ben, look at my hand. Or he didn't say Ben, he didn't know who I was, but he said, look at my hands. And I looked at him, I said, what is that? He said, he told me he was a construction worker. Come to find out, he was suffering from a condition called concrete dermatitis, which is a reaction that people have to concrete. Not everybody, but concrete actually has toxic ingredients in it. And this guy was having a reaction. He'd been using all kinds of stuff. His doctors didn't know what to do. And he was just totally frustrated. And I had this, boom, inspiration, aha experience. I said, you know what? I'm going to go in the back of the pharmacy where there's always cool chemicals in the back of pharmacies. Pharmacists are all frustrated chemists. So we always keep interesting chemicals in the back of the pharmacy. And I went in the back of the pharmacy and I just mixed him up some stuff. I didn't even think anything of it. It was those messy goop, stuck it in a jar, slapped a label on it, gave it to him. And I didn't give him a second thought. I closed up the pharmacy, went back to work the next day, and never even thought about it again until a couple of weeks later, he comes back to the pharmacy and he shows me his hands, and his hands were dramatically improved. They weren't 100% improved, but they're probably 80% improved. And he was a very happy man. And long story short, I started making him this one formula, and his hands completely improved, or his condition completely disappeared. He told his doctor started calling the pharmacy where I was working to giving me patients who had specific problems, and I would make products for these patients using the intuitions that I had for this guy, Ed, and applying them to all these different patients. And within a few months, I had a list of patients, formulas, and skin conditions and formulas that worked for those skin conditions. After a short while, I just started my own pharmacy where I made skincare products for people. And I discovered a lot of things about skincare, topical skincare, as well as internal nutrition for the skin. The aha experience, the inspiration experience I had with Ed was that if internal nutrition is good for the body, it's probably going to be good for the skin. And that means internal nutrition as well as topical nutrition. What I made for Ed was topical nutrients. I made the goopy stuff that I made for him was topical vitamin A. It was topical vitamin E. It was topical zinc. It was topical selenium. And most importantly, it was topical vitamin C. And it was a big goopy mess, but it was loaded with nutrition. And that was the inspiration that I had. That was the understanding that the aha understanding that I had was that if you could use nutrients to build the body internally, you could probably do them topically. And it's true. That's the most important ingredients for the skin, internal as well as topical. And if your topical skincare product is not packed with certain nutrients, vitamins, and minerals, the mighty 90 essential nutrients, not all of them for the skin, but a selection of them for the skin, you're missing the boat on topical skincare. Now, in addition to topical nutrients, you also have to have some way of getting those topical nutrients to the active living cells underneath. And that is perhaps the most important misunderstanding about the skin. In fact, I just talked to a gal today, she's an RN actually, and she sent me a picture of her skin, and she wanted to know which one of my products she could put on her skin. This is a nurse, and she didn't understand that this condition that she was dealing with in the skin was not a skin condition. We misunderstand how the skin is structured because nobody tells us that this thing has a certain architecture. This organ we call the skin has an architecture. Let me talk a little bit about how this organ called the skin is put together. Now, everybody's always heard that the skin is the body's largest organ, right? How many times have you heard that, Rebecca? Zillions of times. The skin is the body's largest organ. Unfortunately, we're very glib about that meme, that phrase. We don't really know what the heck we're talking about for the most part. Because does this look like an organ? How does this could this possibly look like an organ? Yeah, we blah, blah, blah. Skin is the largest organ, blah, 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 blah. But do we really think this is an organ? How is this an organ? How could this possibly be an organ? An organ is bloody, an organ throbs, an organ is dynamic, it's gooey. You don't want to see an organ. You don't want to see your intestine. You don't want to see your heart. You don't want to see your liver. You don't want to see your brain. You don't want to see an organ, but yet we look at this and we have this stupid phrase, the skin is the body's largest organ. And we repeat it and we repeat it and repeat it. Probably most of you people have repeated or heard it repetitively over and over again, but we don't see it as an organ. Why is that? Because as it said, still waters run deep, and the organ-like nature of the skin, excuse me, it's water. The organ-like nature of the skin is underneath. It's deep. The skin is layered like baklava or like lasagna. And the surface of the skin, the part we see, is very important, I'm going to say now, is not alive. The surface that we see is not alive. It's a very unusual tissue in the body. There's no tissue in the body that's not alive, that's functional. But here we have this non-living covering on the surface of the skin. Now, this non-living covering is very important, it's very functional, and it has some biochemistry that's going on in it, but the livingness of the skin is underneath. Yet when we use skincare products, because we don't see the livingness, we think nothing, we just think we're just going to rub something on the skin and make it change. I call it rub it on and hope for the best. That's the strategy we have when we buy our fancy schmancy moisturizing creams and wrinkle creams and anti-aging products. We rub it on and hope for the best. We have no idea, for the most part, what the heck we're doing or what the heck the product is doing, because we don't see any life here. It doesn't look like there's any livingness. The livingness is underneath. And in order to understand how to have beautiful skin, in order to understand how to resolve a skincare problem, in order to understand how to even have healthy skin, we have to get to where the living tissue, the living entities are. The living entities are the cells, and the cells are down deep. So let's talk a little bit about the structure of the skin, this baklava nature of the skin. The skin is layered. It's made up of 3 main layers. The bottom layer is 90% of the skin. It's the bulk of the skin. It's called the dermis. The dermis is where the blood is. The dermis is where the collagen is, the connective tissue is. The high hyaluronic acid is 90% of the skin is the dermis. When we're aging, when we don't like the way our skin looks, the wrinkles, the thinness, the crepiness, we're dealing with a dermis problem. We're dealing with an issue that's down below. I'm going to get to why that's important here in a second. On top of the dermis, you have the epi means on top of, you have the epidermis. The epidermis is about 9.9% of the skin, maybe even more, 9.99% of the skin. And that's on top of the dermis. The epidermis is where the skin cells live. There's only one, technically speaking, the main skin cell, pretty much the only skin cell, is called the keratin oocyte. Cyte, C-Y-T, means cell. Keratin is a hard protein, like your fingernails. That's keratin. Keratin, if you know anything about hair, your hair is keratin. Sometimes you'll see keratin shampoos. Keratin is a hard protein that's like rhino horns or deer antlers or horse hooves or feathers or fish scales. They're all made of keratin. Keratin is a very, very common protein in the natural world. And the cells in the epidermis make keratin. A lot of skincare issues are caused by problems with keratin. For example, acne is a keratin problem. There's bumps on the skin that sometimes people get, hard bumps on the skin. That's a keratin problem. Excuse me, psoriasis is a keratin problem. Dry skin can be a keratin problem. I'll tell you why here in a second. These skin cells, these keratinocytes, also make moisture factors. And dry skin is the end result of problems with the skin cells making moisture factors. And there's not a moisturizing cream on planet Earth that will make a difference. And this is why it's even worse than that. I'll tell you why here in a second. This is why everybody's wearing moisturizing creams and everybody's got dry skin. People have moisturizing creams in their locker and in their car and in their purse and in their bathroom and in their office and in their wherever. Some people have 5 or 6 or 10 different moisturizing creams, and everybody has dry skin. Nobody's getting help because moisturizers don't affect the skin cells. They suppress the skin cells that are making the moisture factors. I'll get into that in a second here. The skin cells also make fats. Fats go to create a healthy skin surface. The top of the epidermis is the 3rd layer of the skin. That's called the stratum corneum. That's the barrier. That's the part that does the work. When you have dry skin, you know it as a barrier issue. Nobody knows they have dry skin down beneath. The dry skin is at the surface. And even worse, we don't even know that we have dry skin. When people say they have dry skin, what they really mean is they have hard, rough skin. You can't tell skin dryness. You can tell skin roughness and hardness. Why is that important? Because all of our so-called moisturizers don't moisturize, they soften the rough skin. They don't do anything for moisture. So you say, okay, great. I'm going to soften my rough skin. That sounds good. The problem is if your skin is losing moisture, the biochemistry of the skin is suffering and your skin is now unhealthy. Your skin is now more susceptible to skin diseases or skin problems. So the answer to treating dry skin, the answer to treating skin problems, the answer to treating aging skin has to do with everything that we don't see. It has to do with the skin cells. It has to do with the cells underneath that make the collagen and the connective tissue. I forgot to mention, those are called fibroblasts. The three main skin cells that you want to address topically as well as internally, if you want to have healthy, beautiful skin, are the cells that make the collagen, and they also make other things too, like hyaluronic acid, which most people have heard of these days, but 20 years ago, nobody really heard of. And those are called the fibroblasts. They also make a few other things, and that keeps the 90% of the skin beefy. You ever look at your 5-year-old grandson or son or kid, and you look at their cheeks and they're all bouncy, and you want to squeeze them. They look so delicious and thick and healthy. That's all the connective tissue. That's healthy connective tissue. And you look at your grandmother, and it's not so much. That's because the fibroblasts are not doing their business. On top of the skin, on top of the dermis, you have the keratinocytes, and then you have the pigment cells, and those are the three main cells of the skin: the fibroblasts, the keratinocytes, the skin cells, and the pigment cells. Now, there's a few other things in there that involve immunity and touch and neurology, but those aren't as important. The three main cells, at least for what we're talking about today, the three main cells are the cells that make the collagen and the hyaluronic acid, the cells that make the keratin and the fats and the natural moisture factor, the keratinocytes, and the cells that make the pigment. And those are the three places you have to work on if you are going to change the quality of your skin. What we do is we work on the dead stuff. We work on the stuff that doesn't have any living force. You can't make a change in the skin unless you're at the living cells, which are beneath. We put our stuff on our dead skin, on the surface of our skin. Go out and you spend your fancy $100 on your fancy schmancy moisturizing cream or whatever it is your topical product is. You put on your skin. What do you get? You get soft, dead skin. Congratulations. For your $140 an ounce fancy schmancy moisturizer that Cindy Crawford told you about, or whatever that the dermatologist or the esthetician told you about, you get soft, dead skin. If you're not addressing the cells, you can't make a skin change. So then the question becomes, what is it that the cells listen to? How do you address the cells? Well, it turns out that remember, the skin's an organ, right? So it's like any other organ. The cells of any organ respond to nutrition. And this aha experience that I had with Ed in the pharmacy was just that you could do it topically. You could feed the cells topically. You could activate and nutriate the cells topically if you knew what you were doing. It turns out that there's only a few nutrients that the cells need from a topical perspective. They need vitamin C, and they need vitamin A. And they need some kind of system to get that vitamin C and vitamin A down to the living cells through the skin surface. And if you get yourself vitamin C and vitamin A in the correct forms and put them in a vehicle or carrier that will deliver that vitamin C and vitamin A to the living cells, you will have all you need from a topical perspective to get rid of dry skin, wrinkled skin, and hyperpigmented skin, and pretty much any skin problem, Now, I will say, I'll repeat, as I said earlier, topical skincare is icing on the cake. You have to have a cake in order to have, you have to have a good cake in order to have a beautiful cake. You can't just put icing on a crappy cake. That cake, in terms of skincare, is internal nutrition. So if you just do internal nutrition and don't do any topical skincare, you'll still have good skin. Just like if you don't put any icing on your cake, but you got a good cake, it'll still be a tasty cake. The icing on the cake, the topical strategies for taking care of the skin are icing on the cake. Your goal, if you want to have, or your the mission, if you want to achieve the goal of having beautiful skin, is to take care of internal nutrition. So then the question is, what are the internal nutrients to take care of the skin? Well, the skin is a fatty organ. It depends on fats. The secret to beautiful skin, just like the secret to a beautiful internal body in terms of longevity, is in the fats. Why is that? Because water-soluble nutrients are easy for the body to obtain. Water-soluble nutrients are much easier to get out of foods. Water-soluble nutrients, the B complex and vitamin C, are much easier for the digestive system to process. Fatty nutrients are much harder for the digestive system to process, and fatty nutrients are much less stable than water-soluble nutrients. They break down quickly. That's why Dr. Wallach's always saying, don't eat oil or don't ingest oils, because they break down quickly. So if you want to have healthy, beautiful skin from an inside perspective, from a nutritional perspective, you got to work on the fats. The most important fats internally for the skin are vitamin A, just like it is topically, and I'll tell you some specifics here in a moment, are vitamin A internally, essential fatty acids internally, and fatty minerals, specifically zinc and selenium. That is not comprehensive. You always need the mighty 90 essential nutrients. They're all the nutrients are important for the skin. Without the B complex, you're going to end up with dermatitises and rashes. Without the B complex, you'll have excessive secretion of sebum. Without the B complex, you'll be more prone towards skin tags and other signs of blood sugar problems. Skin tags are a sign of blood sugar problems. So without vitamin C, you'll end up with scurvy, which one of the main signs is skin problems. So you got to have the water-soluble nutrients too, but the key is in the fats, because the fats are so hard to process. So let's go through all what I call the handbook of good nutrition and tell you about how each one of these nutrients are specific for the skin, focusing on the fats. So in the handbook of good nutrition, protein is the first chapter. The skin, like any other organ of the body, is mostly made up of protein. One of the things about protein that people don't realize is the moisture factors that I talked about earlier that are made from the skin cells come from largely derived from amino acids, specifically the amino acid arginine and the amino acid glutamine. They're two very important amino acids for helping the skin stay moist because they compose the natural moisture factor. Arginine is found in high protein foods. Glutamine is also found in high protein foods. You can also supplement with glutamine and arginine. In fact, everybody should be supplementing, in my opinion, everybody should be supplementing with glutamine and arginine. Arginine is actually used as a wound healing amino acid. And if you suffer from burns, God forbid, third-degree burns, go to the burn ward. Arginine is part of the wound healing protocol for burns. Also, as I say, very important for skin moisturization. Also, glutamine is very important for skin moisturization. And again, this is not comprehensive. If you want a good food for moisturizing and keeping the skin healthy, whey protein. Fit Shake, which is whey protein, is a great skin moisturization nutritional supplement. Another helpful food that's important for skin health, probably the most important food for skin health and for keeping the skin moisturized and keeping the skin healthy in anti-age in terms of health, is the incredible edible egg. It's not only the perfect food for the body, it's the perfect food for the skin for a lot of reasons. Eggs contain the fats that you need, and eggs contain the fatty vitamins that you need, eggs contain the fatty minerals that you need, eggs contain the amino acids for the natural moisture factor, and bonus, eggs contain hyaluronic acid and collagen for the dermis. Okay, chapter 2 is the fats. Essential fatty acids are the key that turns on the engine of connective tissue, along with vitamin C. Essential fatty acids, as you all know, are known as omega-6 and omega-3. If you want to induce dry skin in a laboratory animal, you take out essential fatty acids. Essential fatty acid deficiencies will cause rashes. They'll cause sensitive skin, and they'll cause defects in the surface, the skin barrier. essential fatty skin barrier defective skin barrier will induce skin sensitivities. And anybody who has sensitive skin should realize that it is a health condition associated with nutritional deficiencies. Nobody should have sensitive skin, and the most important nutritional deficiency that's associated with skin sensitivities is essential fatty acids. Why? Because skin sensitivities are linked to barrier defects in the skin surface. But building up that barrier is incredibly important, and essential fatty acids do that. Of course, that's your ultimate EFAs. So for dry skin, for sensitive skin, for building the skin barrier, just as an aside, one of the most troubling problems that people have with their skin as they get older is something called hyperpigmentation, also known as melasma. That's the formation of dark spots on the skin. Happens as we get older. Defects in the skin barrier can also lead to hyperpigmentation. So strengthening the skin barrier with essential fatty acids can also have a skin lightening effect in the long run. It won't lighten dark spots that are already there, but it will help prevent the formation of more dark spots as time goes on. Essential fatty acids. Chapter 2, essential fatty acids. Chapter 3 is the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are very interesting from a topical perspective. There's a class of carbohydrates that are called GAGs, also called proteoglycans, sometimes people call them. These are complex sugars that are attached to proteins. The most famous one is called hyaluronic acid, which we just talked about. There's another one that's called beta-glucan, as in restart your life. Beta-glucan and hyaluronic acid used topically can help restore the microbiome of the skin. The skin has a microbiome, just like the digestive system has a microbiome. Microbiome is the bacteria. We've talked about this all the time. The bacteria in the gut help us digest our food. They make vitamins. They help detoxify things. They're important for the processing of fats, etc. So we always suggest probiotic supplements for things like eczema, psoriasis, even dry skin, for allergic reactions, for boosting the immune system. Well, it turns out your skin has a microbiome too. And many of the things that we do to our skin on a regular basis destroy the microbiome. Soap has a destructive effect on the microbiome, for example. Preservatives in skincare products, which kill bacteria, can also have a negative effect on the skin microbiome. Chlorine in water, in tap water, can have a negative effect on the microbiome. So a lot of things that we do on a regular basis, a lot of the ways we treat our skin have a suppressant effect or a killing effect on the skin microbiome. It turns out that topically applied hyaluronic acid and topically applied beta-glucan can help support the microbiome. They act as prebiotics for the skin microbiome. You guys may know that taking in oral prebiotics help you grow a microbiome in your gut. Well, topical prebiotics can do the same thing, and beta-glucan and hyaluronic acid are part of the chapter 3, the carbohydrate chapter, that can help support the microbiome topically. Likewise, taking hyaluronic acid internally and beta-glucan internally, Restart Your Life, has beta-glucan in it, or is made with beta-glucan. Those can help build collagen and connective tissue in the dermis, in the lower levels of the skin, the bottom layers of the skin. Chapter 4 is fiber. Fiber is important as a prebiotic internally. Fiber can help you detoxify the intestine. Toxicity at the level of the intestine over time will get into the bloodstream, and a lot of skin problems are the end result of toxicity that gets into the bloodstream through a clogged up colon. So keeping the colon clean by supporting regular bowel movements is also very important. In fact, as a skincare professional, when people talk to me about skin problems, one of the first things I'll ask them is about their bowel movements, because a clogged up intestine will eventually lead to toxicity in the bloodstream, which will show up on the skin, especially as cystic acne, or acne that appears on the sides of the face, on the cheek area, which is usually the result of some kind of digestive health issue. We'll talk about that here in a sec. So cleaning out the intestine is very important, and that's where fiber comes in. Best way to get your fiber is with vegetable juices. Also, you can grind up flax seeds, chia seeds, ground up seeds, and veggies, fruits and veggies are the best way to get your fiber. And then chapter 5 is water, making sure that you're hydrating enough, not necessarily to moisturize the skin. There's a myth that says that if you drink more water, your skin will become moister, or if you have dry skin, you should drink more water. Not true. Nobody ever has dry skin because they're dehydrated or because they're not getting enough water. They have dry skin because they're losing water through the surface. That's not a water intake issue. However, water is important for chemistry. The hydration of the skin is critical for the biochemistry to function appropriately. So hydration is important for chemistry, not necessarily for keeping your skin hydrated. Your skin will stay, dehydration won't affect your skin until you have you're dying of dehydration. Then it might affect the skin. For most people aren't that dehydrated that they're dying unless they're in a desert somewhere. Most people are just mildly dehydrated, but that can affect chemistry. Dehydration of water is also important for the digestive system. Sometimes I hear people say, don't drink water with your meals. That's not true. You need water with your meals because water is important for your food to get digested appropriately. Now, in an ideal world, the water would come from your food, but most of us are eating processed food that doesn't have enough water in it. So if you're eating cooked food, processed food that has lost its water, it's very important that you're drinking water with your meals so that you can digest your food appropriately. Drinking water, however, means that you're going to be losing certain nutrients, electrolytes, the B complex and vitamin C. And so if you're drinking more water, it's important to make sure that some of that water that you're drinking has Beyond Tangy Tangerine in it, to make sure that you're replacing the B complex and vitamin C and the electrolytes that you're going to lose out, that you're going to lose in your urine. The more water you drink, the more you urinate, the more you lose these nutrients. So the more water you drink, the more important it becomes to make sure you're replacing those nutrients with the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. Speaking of water-soluble nutrients, that's our next chapter. That's the B complex and vitamin C. The B complex, as we talked about earlier, is energizing. There's specific B complex nutrients, B complex vitamins that have some specific roles to play in the skin, especially vitamin B3, which is niacin. Niacin deficiency is one of the fastest ways to cause redness in the skin. In fact, the disease that's caused by vitamin B3 or niacin deficiency is called pellagra. One of the main signs of pellagra is sensitive skin and red skin. Red sensitive skin is a sign of pellagra. You can actually treat red sensitive skin using niacin internally and using niacin topically. Talked earlier about how vitamin C and vitamin A are the two most important vitamins for the skin topically. Just underneath those two vitamins for topical nutrients is niacin. Niacin is very important for helping restore the skin barrier and has an anti-redness effect on the skin as well. When I'm creating barrier repair products, sometimes in the pharmacy I have to make barrier repair products for folks who have burns or folks who have had skin procedures done. I always use niacin topically. So it's not quite as important as vitamin A and vitamin C topically, but it's still important topically. And then vitamin B5 is important for this slowing down and controlling the secretion of skin oils. Folks who have oily skin, high doses of vitamin B5 can be very helpful. Even topical B5 can be very helpful. But I always hesitate to isolate the B vitamins or isolate specific vitamins because the whole complex, the whole B complex is important. And the next water-soluble vitamin is vitamin C. Vitamin C is so important as a nutrient. I don't even like classifying it as an ordinary nutrient. It's like head and shoulders above all the other nutrients. It's like there's baseball players and there's Babe Ruth. There's nutrients and then there's vitamin C. It is the king of all the nutrients. And vitamin C deficiency is much more common than we know because most of us, present company excluded if you're in longevity, most people think that a multivitamin will get them enough vitamin C. Or most people will think that a glass of orange juice will get them a vitamin C, neither of which is true. You need very high doses of vitamin C daily. And by high doses, I'm talking like 1,000 milligrams a day or 2,000 milligrams a day. The recommended daily allowance is 1/10 of that or 1/20th of that. And on top of all that, we lose our vitamin C in our urine. It's water soluble. Vitamin C deficiency causes the body to shrivel. Vitamin C is the key player in the building of connective tissue, that plump skin that your baby has or your grandbaby or your grandkid has, or your son or daughter if they're 4 or 5 years old. That's the result of connective tissue that's produced by vitamin C. Without vitamin C, the bones become weak, the skin becomes thin, the gums start to deteriorate, the blood vessels become weak. All of the signs of aging that we find so distressing, the arthritis, the osteoporosis, the wrinkles, the gum disease, all of that, the heart disease, the aneurysms, the cholesterol deposits, all of those are signs of vitamin C deficiency. So taking high doses of vitamin C is really important. One of the coolest things about the Beyond Tangy Tangerine is that it contains a big old dose of vitamin C in addition to the B complex. Then there's the fat-soluble nutrients, the fat-soluble vitamins. The fat-soluble vitamins go by the acronym DEAK, D-E-A-K, DEAK. Those are your fatty vitamins. Vitamin D is important for everything, but it's especially important for skin cells, the keratinocytes. Those skin cells are very dependent on vitamin D, and without enough vitamin D, skin cells go crazy. They grow really, really fast when they don't have enough vitamin D. One of the interesting things about cell growth and cell division, and this is kind of a little secret that only biochemists know, most folks don't realize this, is that the default state of a cell, the default state of a skin cell is to grow. It takes nutrients to control the growth. And that's why under nutrient deficiency states, when the cells don't have enough nutrients, they grow out of control. Cells that grow out of control and secrete their secretions, their proteins and their various things that come out of the cells, are responsible for a lot of skin problems as well as a lot of health problems. The classic health problem caused by cells that are dividing out of control, of course, is cancer. Well, there are skin problems that are associated with skin cells that are growing out of control and secreting out of control. For example, psoriasis is a skin disease where skin cells are growing out of control. Anybody who has psoriasis knows that these things form on the surface called plaques, which are basically cells that are going crazy. They're growing really, really fast. There's a condition called chicken skin, also known as keratosis pylorus. Chicken skin is when you have rough, bumpy skin, again, caused by skin cells that are dividing out of control. Acne is also caused by skin cells growing out of control. Guess what the treatment for all of these conditions is? Vitamin D, as well as the other fat-soluble vitamin that is vitamin D's partner, which is vitamin A. Vitamin A and D go together. That's why you have A and D ointment, perhaps you've seen. So using vitamin D internally and using vitamin A internally is helpful. The best way to get your vitamin D is from the sun, by the way, not internally, but you can use vitamin D supplements too. But the best ways to get your vitamin D is topically. And vitamin psoriasis, keratosis pylorus, and acne all can be improved. The conditions can all be improved by sunshine. Also, wound healing can be improved by sunshine. It's unfortunate that many of us are heliophobes. We're afraid of the sun. And we're taught to be heliophobes by the folks who we trust to be authorities in skincare, dermatologists and estheticians. Sometimes they fall for this meme that the sun is some enemy. That's true. You can get burned by the sun. You don't want to burn yourself, but you definitely want to be exposing your skin to the sun for regular health, you want to have regular exposure to the sun for health. And then there's also vitamin A, which is vitamin D's partner, as I say, and that for psoriasis, for acne, for keratosis pylorus, chicken skin, vitamin A can be very helpful. In fact, for acne, vitamin A is the treatment of choice. And then there's vitamin K, which is important for wound healing. And then there's vitamin E, which is important for wound healing as well as for sun protection. If you burn yourself and you want to heal quickly, take high doses of vitamin E and high doses of vitamin K in addition to all your other nutrients. Again, you don't want to isolate specific nutrients. And then there's the minerals, of course. The minerals, they're all important, but the ones that stand out for the skin are zinc, as we talked about earlier, which is like a cure for acne. Zinc deficiency will cause acne. You don't want to take too much zinc, interestingly, because too much zinc can also cause breakouts. About 50 milligrams of zinc a day is important. Zinc is also treatment of choice for psoriasis, for dandruff. And Head and Shoulders is basically zinc. Zinc is also a topical treatment for athlete's foot and for fungal infections. Then there's a selenium, which is also treatment for fungal infections and also treatment for dandruff. Selsun Blue is topical selenium. Selenium's got a lot of really interesting roles to play in terms of overall health, and Dr. Wallach's been talking about selenium for years. The best way to get your selenium is from the Ultimate Selenium Supplements. I recommend 400 to 600 micrograms a day. Zinc, the best form of zinc is going to be zinc picolinate and zinc monomethionine. Youngevity's got a really cool form of zinc. I forgot the name of it, Zinc FX. Actually, Youngevity now has quite a few zinc products because zinc is so important for the immune system, and Youngevity is really getting into immune boosting products, immune boosting supplements. Another very important and very underappreciated mineral for the skin is silica, S-I-L-I-C-A, not silicon, not silicone, but silica as in silica gel. Silica is a form of silicon, and the best form of silica is something called orthosilicic acid. You get that from all vegetables and all fruits. Nuts and seeds are also good sources of this form of silica called orthosilicic acid. Great for wound healing, great for building connective tissue, great for treating osteoporosis, and also as a stimulant for the production of collagen. Horsetail, if you ever heard of using horsetail for the skin, horsetail and also bamboo shoots are two food sources, or herbs, I guess you'd say, that are good sources of silica. Bamboo shoots are used in Chinese culinary recipes. So that's the 8 chapters of good nutrition as it results to skin internally. And as I say, that's the most important way to take care of the skin. That being said, there are topical things that you could do to take care of the skin as well. Topical vitamin C should be fatty, and you got to look for fat-soluble vitamin C. It's hard to find. It goes by the acronym THDA. That's fat-soluble vitamin C. And also vitamin A. Vitamin A comes in 2 main active forms. There's a few different forms, but the 2 main active forms are called retinol and retinoic acid. Retinoic acid requires a prescription, but it is the most powerful skin nutrient that you could ever buy, even more powerful than vitamin C, which is the second most powerful. Vitamin A, retinoic acid, which is active vitamin A, is so powerful for the skin that it's actually a prescription. You can't get it without a prescription. However, you can get the precursor to retinoic acid, which is called retinol. And anybody who's interested in anti-aging the skin, lightening the skin, just overall skin health, building up the collagen and building a healthy dermis should be using retinol on a regular basis. By regular basis, I mean at least 2 or 3 times a week, some maybe even more. You have to see how your skin does. One of the things about vitamin A topically is it's very, very stimulating and immune activating. And people who have sensitive skin or people who have barrier defects will have a hard time using retinol or retinoic acid. If that's you, and you want to use retinol or retinoic acid, start building up the skin barrier with topical niacin, with internal essential fatty acids, and with topical vitamin C, and also topical, internal fats for helping make the skin lipids that come out of the skin cells. And that leads me to another very important topical strategy for improving the skin barrier, improving skin health, and that's using regular exfoliation techniques. Exfoliation is when you get rid of the dead cells on the surface, and that initiates growth from the bottom to the top. Skin cells grow from the bottom to the top. This process is very important and very fascinating. Remember, the skin cells are living in the bottom of the skin, and they're the living cells, and they rise up to the top, and at the very top, they become the skin surface, the skin barrier. The skin barrier is composed of the fats that come out of the cells in combination with the dead cells themselves. So the skin cells are rising from the bottom to the top, the keratinocytes are rising from the bottom to the top, and as they're rising from the bottom to the top, they're becoming progressively more dead until they finally completely dead at the top. In addition, as they're rising from the bottom to the top, they're producing fats and moisture factors. So this triad of dead cells in the surface, fats, and moisture factors are what account for a strong barrier, and it all comes from cells rising from the bottom to the top. So the more effective this rising movement from the bottom to the top is, the healthier your skin barrier will be, and the healthier your skin will be. So how do you improve the movement of cells from the bottom to the top? Exfoliation. Exfoliation means to get rid, is a term that refers to getting rid of dead cells off the surface. When dead cells come off the surface, more cells rise from the bottom to the top, more fats are produced, you get more cells for the barrier, and you get more moisture factors. The best way to exfoliate, and you want to think of exfoliating like exercise. By the way, exfoliation comes from the word foliage or folia, which means leaves. To exfoliate is to remove the leaves. To exfoliate means removing leaves off the surface of the skin, the leaves being the cells. Any gardener knows that if you want your plants to be nice and bushy, you trim them back. Trimming back the leaves is a type of exfoliation. So you can think of exfoliation strategies for the skin like trimming back the leaves on your plants. And just like you get a stimulating effect, a growth effect on your plants, you get a growth effect on the skin. The best way to exfoliate the skin is with acidic substances, especially a class of acids called alpha hydroxy acids. Many people have heard of them. The most classic one is glycolic acid, but there's a few different ones, lactic acid and malic acid. They're found in nature, and throughout history, women, especially women, but men too, have known that if they put milk on their skin, or if they put lemon juice on their skin or citrus products on their skin, they can improve the look of the surface of the skin, as well as improve anti-aging or slow down the aging process. Well, milk and citrus fruits contain alpha hydroxy acids. You can get alpha hydroxy acids in lots of different products, or you can get them straight from the pharmacy, or you can just put lemon juice on your skin, or you can use milk on your skin, all of which contain alpha hydroxy acids. Apple cider vinegar doesn't contain alpha hydroxy acids, but it contains something very similar to alpha hydroxy acids, which can also have an exfoliating and anti-aging effect on the skin. And by the way, when you exfoliate the skin, you also even out the skin pigment, because pigment tends to accumulate in dead skin cells. So you can actually have a skin lightening effect in addition to having an anti-aging effect. And then the last thing I want to talk about here a little bit is sun protection. I do Instagram. By the way, I have an Instagram page where I do reels every few days. Reels are these little short, 60-second blurbs that I do for those of you guys who don't know. And whenever I do one on the sun, those are the ones that get the most response. Number one, because everybody seems to be fascinated with sun and sun protection. Number two, because what I say about the sun flies in the face of what most people believe about the sun. Number one, the sun's your friend, and you want to make sure that you're getting regular sun exposure. You don't want to burn, however. And number two, this always freaks people out when I say this. I'm just going to say it to you guys. Probably won't freak you guys like it does non-longevity folks or folks who don't understand how nutrition works. You never want to use a sunscreen. You want to use a sunblock. A sunblock is different from a sunscreen. Now, it's a little confusing because a few years ago, the FDA said you can't call things sunblock and sunscreen. You have to call them chemical sunscreen and mechanical sunscreen, which is a little bit deceiving, but that's the terms now. I call them sunscreen and sunblock. There's only two sunblocks. Everything else is a sunscreen. The sunblocks are zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. There's about 20 different sunscreen chemicals. They're all toxic. They're all toxic. If you put a sunscreen chemical on a cell, that cell will die. So you say, why the heck would I ever put that on my skin? I don't know. There's no reason to when you have sunblocks, or as they call them today, mechanical sunscreens. These mechanical sunscreens are zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. Always look for those in your skin, your topical skin product, topical sun protection products, zinc oxide or titanium dioxide, but especially zinc oxide. Zinc oxide is the best, topical zinc oxide is the best topical ingredient for protecting your skin from the sun. It protects the skin from all the different rays. There's different sun rays. They call them UVA, UVB, UVC. Zinc oxide protects from all of them. And zinc oxide stays stable in the sun while chemical sunscreens don't. Titanium dioxide's okay, but there's some toxicity associated with titanium dioxide internally. I don't know if you guys read this, but a couple of weeks ago, there was maybe a couple days ago or last week, there was an article about Skittles, the candy Skittles, and how they contain a toxic ingredient. Well, that toxic ingredient in Skittles is titanium dioxide. That's not the same kind of toxicity internally as topically. Nonetheless, compared to zinc oxide, which is healing, titanium dioxide doesn't have those benefits. So topical sun protection, zinc oxide. But like with all things with the skin, topical is icing on the cake. The best way to protect your skin from the sun is internal nutrition, especially pigments. The reds, the blues, the greens, the oranges, the purples. Pigments are found in vegetables. Eat your veggies. Also, nutrients that protect your eyes from the sun, like your Occutive and your Vision FX, will also protect your skin from the sun. So if you want to protect your skin from the sun, make sure you're using Occutive or Vision FX. Make sure you're getting your pigments, and then topically use zinc oxide. And finally, topical vitamin C is sun protective. Topical vitamin E is sun protective. So making sure you're using topical vitamins, especially C and E, can also have sun protective benefits. I meant to leave some time for questions, and we don't have a lot, but if you have, do we have questions here, Rebecca?
We do have some questions.
That was by no means comprehensive, you guys. That was like the Cliff Notes version of having healthy, beautiful skin. I have, I do a blog. If you go to truthtreatments.com, I have a blog on skincare. I also have my Instagram page. I talk a lot about skincare, and on Facebook, I talk about skincare. So Truth Treatments Facebook page, Truth Treatments Instagram page, or if you go to my truthtreatments.com website, you'll get my blog on skincare.
All right. Oh, I can't even spell .com. But folks, if you're online with us, check the chat, because I took cliff notes of his cliff notes and put them in the chat for you. Hopefully I got everything in there right. My typing is getting much better, but I don't know about all of you, but I learned a lot. I thought that before starting longevity, I had 17 different conditions. I think I just added 5 more that I no longer have. So it's amazing, and all the things that the skin represents and how it speaks to us and letting us know what's going on, what it's missing. And when you give it what it needs, you get a completely different story, which I'm loving my story, Ben. And I thank you for that, for helping me with that story.
Your own health authority. You're writing your own health story.
Yes. Yes. Well, and even as a health authority, we all need mentors. We learn, we grow from our mentors. And thank you for being one of my key mentors.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes. So, okay. So we do have a couple questions from people that are here with us. And some of them are specifically disease related.
Yeah.
So, but Anne has one that's skin related though. She says, I do have sensitive skin, so I'm thinking I'm having trouble absorbing my EFAs. How do I improve fat absorption?
Couple things. Dr. Wallach calls the ultimate enzymes gallbladder in a bottle. And that's what it is, gallbladder in a bottle. The gallbladder is the organ that stores bile and then secretes it when you eat a fatty food. If you have a gallbladder issue or a liver issue, that can impair fat digestion. So take your ultimate enzymes and take them with apple cider vinegar to activate the ultimate enzymes. So with your EFAs and all fatty foods, make sure you're using your ultimate enzymes and apple cider vinegar. There's a couple other things you could do if you want extra bile salts. There's bile salts in the ultimate enzymes. You can get extra bile salts. Lecithin, there's also lecithin in the ultimate enzymes. That also helps support fat absorption. And also pancreatic enzymes can be helpful for folks who have fat absorption issues. Look for lipase, Lipase, that can help. And then there's also something called Swedish bitters or stomach bitters that you can use to stimulate bile secretion before meals or with your meals. You can also use dandelion greens, radish, things that have a bitter kind of quality, stimulate bile secretion, and it will improve fat absorption.
All right, thank you so much for that. And then your discussion, you mentioned how the cancers are out of control, or sorry, cells out of control, not balanced, cancer being one of the extreme. And Linda has put in the chat here, she says, my issue is chromophone kidney cancer. So I'm assuming diagnosed July of 2021.
The operative word there is cancer. It doesn't matter that it's in the kidney. It matters if the cells are out of control. So, and I'm sorry for that. My condolences, but here's the deal. If you have any kind of cancer, you want to regard it as a sign of distress at the level of the cell. In fact, I've said this before, I'll say it again. There's no such thing as kidney cancer. There's kidney cell cancer. The problem with cancer is at the level of the cell, not the organ. You can't treat it at the organ level. You got to treat it at the cell level. So what is it that makes the cell go cancerous, go rogue? So a cancer cell is a cell that goes rogue. As I said earlier, how cells grow and divide is tightly controlled. It's tightly regulated. What is it that makes a cell divide out of control? Lack of nutrition, lack of oxygen, and toxicity. So the best way to deal with any kind of cancer is to pound the nutrients. IV is the best way, especially depending on how progressed the cancer is. Intravenous is the best way because absorption is usually the rate limiting step in how much nutrients you get. And if you get nutrients intravenously, they go right into your blood. The next best way is liquid. That's one of the reasons why the Beyond Tangerine is so important. So making sure that you're getting enough nutrients, specific, I can tell you some specific ones, but I hate to isolate them. Vitamin C is probably the most important because vitamin C is so darn protective, but they're all important. The mighty 9 essential nutrients. Oxygen is very important. Cancer cells are cells that have been deprived of oxygen. You want to make a cell go cancerous, just rob it of oxygen. So things like hyperbaric oxygen chambers, HBO, look up hyperbaric oxygen therapy, HBOT. Most cities have an HBOT therapy center, either in hospitals or sometimes they're independent. Moving the body also supports oxygenation, especially moving the lymphatic system with exercise, or it doesn't have to be anything dramatic, but some kind of movement. Even slow, deep breathing has a positive effect, a beneficial effect on the lymph, which can improve oxygenation in addition to the oxygen that you're getting from the breathing. And then detoxification, especially from food toxins, especially from sugar. But general detoxification, one of the best detox strategies, by the way, is something called chelation therapy. And anybody who's dealing with cancer should find a good chelation therapist. Now, you can do chelation therapy with oral chelation with things like vitamin C, selenium, sulfur, N-acetylcysteine. You can even get something called EDTA, which is a chelating agent. But the best one is when they put EDTA right into your bloodstream, and chiropractors or alternative practitioners, depending on your state, or doctors can do chelation therapy. And that's a great way to detoxify the blood and get rid of poisons. And then if you're not having regular bowel movements, the bowels are one of the main ways that we eliminate toxins, as well as urination. So making sure that you're drinking enough water, especially if you're dealing with a kidney problem.
All right, that's a lot of information. And Longevity has the Oxy Body Cherry Berry.
And also the Longevity has the Restart Your Life. Depending on how progressed the cancer is, you may need the big guns. And that would be something like IV nutrition or chelation therapy. But prevention is also important, and that's where a lot of the wonderful Longevity products, including Restart Your Life, come in. They're very protective against cancer. And nobody should regard cancer as a death sentence, number one, because people remit from cancer all the time. I have a big textbook called Spontaneous Remissions from Cancer that just case study after case study after case study that talks about remissions from cancer. And then number two, if you do have cancer, God forbid, your goal should be to feel better every day. Not even to think about the cancer as much as to think about feeling better every day, to have more energy every day. Do every single day to do something that improves your energy levels. The ketogenic diet can also be helpful for cancer. And then interestingly, calorie restriction with optimum nutrition is also an anti-cancer strategy. People think they have to have a lot of calories sometimes if they're dealing with cancer. It's actually the opposite. You have to have a lot of nutrition, but you don't want a lot of calories. It's called the Cron diet, calorie restriction, optimum nutrition, as well as the ketogenic diet.
And for those of you who are familiar with longevity, Pharmacist Ben is mentioning the Restart Your Life line of products, and that includes our RVB 300, which is a beta 1 and 3 glucan resveratrol mix, and also the RYL beta 500, which is the beta 1 3D glucan. So those are some products to keep in mind. And it's the Trinity lotion part of that one as well. I can't remember, but I think it is, which is a topical beta glucan. So just some product information for those of you who are part of the longevity family with us, or if you're finding information that is really touching home for you and you're wanting to add those things to your internal diet, make sure that you get back with the person that invited you to watch this program and say, hey, I want more information. Thank you for sharing this program with me. I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I've been studying this for a while, and I've got my co-hosts. They're also shaking their heads up and down that they learned a lot. But this information is so valuable in helping you write your own story when it comes to health, because like Ben said just a little bit ago, you are the best and your own health authority. Ben, we have another question.
Hi, this is Ed Powers, and
Okay. So Ben, LaDonna wants to know, what's the difference between fish-based oil and plant-based omega-3, and she put T. So I'm wondering if that's supposed to be 6 on the keyboard.
Say that again now. Fish-based oil and what?
What's the difference between fish-based essential oil, essential fatty acids?
Essential fatty acid in fish oil. I'm sorry, the fatty acid in fish oil is not essential. Essential means in the world of nutrition that you have to have it or you'll die, like air. Air is essential. Water is essential. Food's essential. Without an essential nutrient, you suffer from a deficiency disease and ultimately you die. There's no essential fatty acids in fish. There are very good fatty acids. DHA and EPA are especially important for the skin. They go to make moisture factors in the skin that help to build strengthen the skin barrier. But you can make DHA and EPA. You can make them. Now, it's true, most people don't make enough of them. So it's very helpful to have fish oil because of this DHA and EPA, but they're not essential. There's only 2 essential fatty acids. You have one called alpha linolenic acid, also known as omega-3 essential fatty acid, and you have linoleic acid, also known as omega-6 essential fatty acid. Those are the only 2 essential, meaning you have to have them or else you're dead, you have a deficiency disease, fatty acids. Omega-6 linoleic acid is found in grains and seeds and nuts. It's a very easy to find one, although the foods that we eat are usually processed, that contain them are usually processed, so they're broken down, which is why supplementing is so important. And then the alpha linolenic acid or omega-3 essential fatty acid, that's a little harder to find. The best source is flax, but you'll also find it in a few other places, pumpkin seeds and a few other things. Hemp seeds actually have the perfect balance of omega-6 essential fatty acids to omega-6 to omega-3 essential fatty acids. Chia seeds have alpha linolenic acid in them. They're all important. I don't want to say that omega-6s are more important or omega-3s are more important, or even fish oils are more important or less important. But the essential ones are alpha linolenic acid, omega-3, found in flax and chia and hemp, and linoleic acid found in all grains, pretty much all grains, as well as seeds and nuts.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And then the last question is coming from Karen, and Karen was diagnosed with osteoarthritis in the lower back, both hips, a pinched nerve,
Okay.
MRI and x-rays, that she has done physical therapy, and they say that she's got degenerative disc disease.
Yeah.
I had that.
Yeah. Remember, have you ever heard me talk about all the different diseases can be boiled down into one. All the
Disease.
what's the one disease? Remember the one disease?
Cell disease.
No, MBFA disease.
Oh, yes, my body's falling apart.
Disease.
MBFA.
Only
Yes.
disease. My body is falling apart disease. Osteoarthritis is just your body falling apart. So all you gotta do is rebuild it. Forget diagnosis. You don't need diagnosis. Your body's just falling apart. By the way, if you have osteoarthritis, that means you're not building connective tissue. If you're not building connective tissue in your joints, you're not building it in your skin either. So you're more likely to get wrinkles and aging skin. If you have connective tissue problems building connective tissue, you're not building it in your bones. Your bones are connective tissue. That means you're more prone towards osteoporosis. If you not building connective tissue, if you have a defect in connective tissue building, you're not building the connective tissue in your blood vessels. That means you're more prone towards blood vessel disease or vascular disease. If you're not building connective tissue, you're not building it in the heart. You know, the heart sits on a skeleton of connective tissue, a framework of connective tissue. That means you're more prone towards angina. You're going to be more prone towards of tachycardias and fibrillations. Basically, when you don't build connective tissue, everything shrivels up and everything falls apart. And as I said earlier, not building connective tissue is the very essence of aging. It's what we hate about aging. So if you're not building connective tissue, cartilage is connective tissue in the joints, you have suffering from disc disease, you're not building it in your vertebrae, you're not building it anywhere. So how do you build connective tissue? Well, I said earlier, the key to the connective tissue building engine is vitamin C. And most people are deficient in vitamin C, yet you never see vitamin C as a nutritional supplement for dealing with arthritis. Not only will vitamin C help you build cartilage in your joints, it will also help you build connective tissue in your joints. It'll also help you build connective tissue everywhere else. Essential fatty acids are also important for helping build connective tissue. And of course, the glucogel caps and the pig pack and the healthy bone and joint pack. So all of the nutrients are important. Then if you want to throw in some more things, the breakdown of connective tissue is associated with a biochemical process called glycation. Glycation is the reaction that sugar has with protein. Connective tissue is protein. So reducing glycation by using the healthy blood sugar pack and staying off of high fast burning sugars, which induce glycation. So between the healthy blood sugar pack, vitamin C, your ultimate EFAs, and helping with reduced blood sugar or supporting, taking anti-glycating nutrients, supporting blood sugar processing, you have a wonderful strategy for dealing with all connective tissue deterioration diseases or deterioration issues, whether it's osteoporosis or heart disease or blood vessel issues or wrinkles in the skin, thinning skin, or joint problems or osteoarthritis. And then don't underestimate the importance of exercise. Sometimes when you have arthritis, you don't feel like doing exercise. That's the time you definitely want to be exercising because the body has a use it or lose it kind of attitude. If you don't use your connective tissue, you'll lose your connective tissue. And it turns out that the connective tissue generates electrical charges when it's moved. And those electrical charges stimulate growth. Collagen and connective tissue are piezoelectric. Piezo means pressure. So when you squeeze collagen or when you stretch collagen, like when you're moving or when you're exercising, you generate electrical charges in the collagen, and those electrical charges stimulate growth. In fact, the electrical charges are actually used in something called a trans-electrical neural stimulation, or a TENS unit, which they'll put on your joints or on wounds after if you have knee surgery, if you break your ankle, they'll put an electrical stimulation device to stimulate growth. Well, movement also generates electrical charges that have growth stimulating effects.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jane. I took a picture of your question. So Jane is 84 years old and she's on the 7th day of having the pandemic C word. The coughing has given me laryngitis. So my voice is inaudible. So what are some of the things she's already on, like taking tangerine?
Get yourself some zinc lozenges. Suck on zinc lozenges. Also gargle with vitamin C. Gargling with vitamin C, zinc lozenges. What else can you do for a sore throat? Elderberry. elderberry syrup.
And we have the eucalyptus, the honey eucalyptus syrup in longevity.
Yeah, honey
It's
eucalyptus.
really good for that. That includes the elderberry and also the echinacea. So, yes. And then Patty has a question. Patty said that she has a question for a friend. The son was diagnosed as a baby of tetralogy or phalate.
Say what is that now? Sorry.
Tetralogy of phalate. Fallot.
Tetralogy of phalate.
That's what I have.
That's some Latin gibberish. I got to know what that means. Tetralogy. That doesn't even sound right. Tetralogy of phallus.
That's what she wrote. So, Patty, if you can email into us, we will do some research and see what we can find to have an answer for that.
Spell it for me.
So it's tetralogy, Tetra
Of phalate.
of phalate. Yes.
Tetralogy of phalate. Let's see what that is. Oh yeah, tetralogy of phalate. I never heard of that. Rare condition caused by a combination. Oh, it's a heart defect. All right. So how old's the baby? How old is the baby?
Let me see. Patty, can you come on with us? Go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I had the timing wrong. I thought it was 12 o'clock Pacific, so I entered late. So it is for a friend. Her son is now 16 years old, but he has to get regular checkups for his heart malformity.
Yeah. He's
So
the valves. The valves aren't forming correctly. The valves are made up of connective tissue. So there's 4 types of tissue in the body. And the main tissues are the connective tissue and the muscle tissue. There's also a covering tissue called epithelial tissue, and there's also electrical tissue called neural tissue. But the main tissues are connective tissue and muscle tissue, which form the bulk of the body. Whenever you have a problem, it's rarely epithelial and neural. I should say rarely. It's usually connective tissue involved. The heart valves are made up of connective tissue. Mitral valve prolapses are the same kind of thing. So building the connective tissue is very important. Everything we talked about for building the connective tissue, vitamin C, essential fatty acids, zinc, staying away from anything that causes defects at the level of the connective tissue. Now, if it's congenital, that means it happened inside the womb and the defects are built in. So you're not going to necessarily change the defects, but you can support the health of the valves, and you can support the health of the heart, and you could slow down any degenerative process or even eliminate degeneration. And that's really what you want to be looking at. The malformation itself happened while the baby was being formed inside the womb, and that likely isn't going to change. However, you can make things better, or you can not make things better. You can prevent things from getting worse and support his health by all the connective tissue building strategies. And that's kind of interesting because probably your doctors or this parent hasn't thought of the healthy bone and joint pack. But the healthy bone and joint pack contains all the nutrients for building connective tissue. Does that make sense? You think of the healthy bone and joint pack and say, well, he doesn't have arthritis. He doesn't have joint problems, but it's the same system. It's the connective tissue system. And that's what you want to focus on.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that I learned something new today myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for doing this. We learn a lot from Dr. Wallach and your show with Becca. Take care. God bless.
Thank you, Patty. All right. So yeah, lots of great things learned today.
Yep. I learned something new. I try to learn at least 10 things new every day. So that was one thing I learned today.
Absolutely. And Linda, she's the one that had shared, she's got the chromophoba kidney issues. And she says, you are absolutely correct on issues contributing to her kidney issue. She was always holding her breath, cutting off that oxygen, and living on the edge of her schedule. I started taking tangerine, deep breathing, and additional supplements and nutrients to the Tangy smoothie. And the skin is one of the largest organs and can mirror your inner health. Thank you for the education. I tell many about longevity and critical health news.
Thank you.
So thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Rebecca, for doing this.
Yes. Well, Ben, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us, to allow us to be able to share more resources.
Give out your email, Rebecca, and everybody, you guys can get to me through Rebecca. And also, if you want to sign up under Rebecca, we love having business builders. If anybody's interested in building a business.
So that's for the people who were not invited by somebody specific. You can absolutely reach me at rebecca@diywwithdocwallach.com if you're interested in the business and you were not invited or this program was not shared with you individually. Ben and I would love to have you on our team. Well, Ben, another great successful Q&A with Pharmacist Ben and Becca. Thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for joining us. I thank my co-hosts, Heather Bowen, Lance and Patricia Lamans, Ruth Ellen Sanchez, and where did Brent go? Brent's here too. Thank you guys for making sure that we stay in a safe place and have information shared in the chat that can benefit everybody. See you next month.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Ben. Bye for now, everybody.